Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 12th Annual Canadian Whisky Awards. I bring greetings from John Hall. He's the guy who started 40 Creek, and probably one of the reasons we're here tonight, because he made Canadian whiskey cool again. I'd like to start by thanking our sponsors, the Hotel Grand Pacific in Victoria, and the Victoria Whisky Festival, and of course, Lawrence Graham, Frank Hudson, and Ian Huey, who made that happen. I'd like to acknowledge my co-host when we're live, Heather Leary. She's a wonderful person to work with, and Heather will be back with us live next year when we are back at the Hotel Grand Pacific in Victoria. Now, the Canadian Whisky Awards really has turned into quite an event. It's really growing, and it's become quite a massive undertaking. It takes over about 3 rooms in my house for about three months of the year, each fall. And I'd really like to thank my wife, Janet. Janet does a wonderful job. She does all the logistics. She pours the samples, gets them ready, codes them, sends them out to the judges. And it's an awful lot of work. So thank you, Janet. Thank you very much for doing that. Now, we're projecting that next year we should see about, we're going to surpass 200 entries, I think, next year. These are from the large distilleries and from the small distillers as well. And we're going to be partnering with Alex Hamer in Vancouver. Alex runs the Canadian Artisan Spirits Competition. Now, we are keeping our competition separate and distinct, but Alex is going to be receiving your entries next year, and I'm going to handle the judging and the public relations. The Canadian Whisky Awards were founded to recognize whiskey producers, the best whiskey producers, and help consumers identify the very best Canadian whiskeys for them to purchase and try Canadian whiskey. And over the last 11 years, this is the 12th, the awards have really developed quite a following. And each year live in Victoria, about 65 industry guests will join us live for the presentation gala. Last year, though, of course, we had to go online. I should thank my friend Dolph Shaw from the Spirit of YEG for teaching me how to do this. I'm not an easy student. And last year we had 2.9 thousand viewers across the year on our YouTube and Facebook presentations. The real impact of the Canadian Whisky Awards, though, comes from our media presence. Our online, our public publicity partner provides us with, they call them visibility reports. And last year, 930 different media outlets published our results. Most of this is in the United States, but that's where Canadian whiskey is big anyway, and but plenty of them in Canada as well. But this kind of puts the pressure on, so our results better be credible. And this is why we use a large judging panel. We try to have 10 judges every year. These are not Scotch whiskey lovers, they're not bourbon lovers, they're not spirits generalists who are tasting Canadian whiskey on the side. They may like other spirits, but these are people who really know Canadian whiskey. The judging is all done totally blind, and the judges taste all of the entries. All judges taste all the entries, so they really know what they're dealing with. This year, we had the very good fortune to have as our judges Alex Tardif, Ryan Angan, Mike Brisbois, Blair Phillips, Beth Havers, Chip Dykstra, Sarah Phelps, Ryan Vanderkrook, and of course, I'm there as well. We did have one judge who had to back out at the last minute, and we're hoping she'll join us next year. The winning whiskeys are the ones that receive the highest average score. What we do, the judges send the results in a spreadsheet. We put them all together. We send the final spreadsheets out. It'll go out in a few days after the awards to make sure that everything's been recorded correctly, so the judges are confident that their scores really contributed properly to the average, and so they see each other's scores as well. We've noticed a trend in Canadian whiskey over the last dozen years or so, a trend to back to big flavors and back to really elegant blends. Thinking of, whiskeys like 40 Creek, Caribou Crossing, Wiser's have some wonderful great whiskeys out there. Crown Royal, Canadian Club, Two Brewers, Shelter Point, Okanagan Spirits, North of Seven. It could go on and on and on. But anyways, there are a lot of great ones out there. But what this means is that many of the names that you don't hear tonight are wonderful whiskeys too. They just, they just came that close to winning with their second because somebody else is just that much better this year. And of course, at the same time, in the judge's opinion, not every whiskey that was entered won a medal. Now, in the interest of time, I'll go through the medals fairly quickly, and then we'll get on to the awards. So, in the flavored whiskey category, the bronze medal winners are Sortilege Original, 40 Creek Cream, 40 Creek Spike, Cavvy Reserve Coffee Blended Canadian Whiskey. We have J.P. Wiser's Apple, J.P. Wiser's Manhattan. Ensign Red Salted Caramel. That you got to taste that. It's great. Ensign Red Apple. Rich and Rare Caramel. Rich and Rare Apple. And Crown Royal Apple. Among the silver winners, we have, let me get my page, Wayne Gretzky number 99, Salted Caramel Canadian Cream Whiskey. We have Wayne Gretzky number 9, Maple Cream Whiskey. And Wayne Gretzky number 9, Canadian Cream Whiskey. Silver medals to True North, Canadian Whiskey Cream, that's from Highwood. Black Velvet Toasted Caramel, Janet's favorite whiskey. She makes no bones about it. Crown Royal Vanilla. Sortilege Maple Cream. Sortilege Prestige. Rich and Rare Peach. Silver medal to Ensign Red Peach. J.P. Wiser's Old Fashioned. And J.P. Wiser's Vanilla Whiskey. The gold medal winning flavored whiskeys this year are 40 Creek Nanaimo Bar and Sortilege Wild Blueberries. And that is a wild whiskey. You've got to try it. Now, if we go to the Canadian whiskeys, Canadian Whiskey Canadienne, bronze medal winners, bronze medals go to Alberta Premium Rye. Arbutus Distillery Rye Whiskey. Stillhead, the B Word. Stillhead, Potent Portables. Port whiskey, port finished. Black Velvet Reserve, Canadian Club, 1858. Canadian Mist, and Collingwood. Captain Saint-Simeon, single malt from Fils du Roi, Circa, whiskey number 2, and Circa, whiskey number 3. Bronze medals to Odd Society Commodore single malt, and Dillon's Small Batch Distillers 3 Oaks whiskey. Dillon's Small Batch Distillers Rye 1 whiskey also wins a bronze medal. From Douglas Distilleries, A Beautiful Man, named for my very good friend Jay. Thanks for doing that, Grant. Appreciate it. Eau Claire, batch number 4 malt whiskey. Eau Claire Rupert's Canadian, exceptional whiskey. 40 Creek Barrel Select. 40 Creek Copper Pot Reserve, and 40 Creek The Forager Botanical Whiskey. I love that one too. Divine Glensaddich Single Malt. Kinsip Headlands Hearth Single Malt. That's a beautiful 5-year-old single malt. It's really a nice whiskey. Ensign Red, Legacy Canadian, and High River Canadian whiskey. We have bronze medals for Hiram Walker Special Old Whiskey, J.P. Weiser's Deluxe, J.P. Weiser's 15-year-old, J.P. Weiser's 18-year-old, again, one of my very favorite whiskeys, J.P. Weiser's Special Blend, and J.P. Weiser's Triple Barrel Rye. Highwood Pure Canadian Rye takes home a bronze, as does Kinsip, Cooper's Revival Rye Whiskey. Last Mountain Canadian Blended Rye, Last Mountain Canadian Whiskey, Last Mountain Single Cask Distiller's Select from 2001. That's 2021. That's a great whiskey. And Last Mountain Distillery Single Cask Red Wine Finished. And finally, Last Mountain Distillery Single Cask Single Malt. We have bronze medals for Last Straw Loose Toque. For Last Straw Straight Ontario Rye Whiskey Cask 3. And Last Straw Whiskey in the 6th. I love that. Whiskey in the 6th. Now, yeah, Hiram Walker Special Old is one of my favorites. I noticed that Don Livermore thinks it's one of his favorites too. Well, Don, you got good taste. Bronze medal to Okanagan Spirits BC Rye Whiskey. Paradigm Spirits, first edition Canadian whiskey. That's from Matt Jones. If you know Matt Jones, he did our flair demonstration a few years ago. He's the chef now at Paradigm Spirits. Pendleton 1910. That's a beautiful 12-year-old rye whiskey. Odd Society Prospector Rye Whiskey. And we have from Shelter Point, we have their artisanal single malt. Shelter Point Montfort. Shelter Point Prohibition. Shelter Point Smoke and Oak. And Shelter Point The Forbidden. Stillhead Blackberry Port Finished Rye Whiskey. Stillhead's doing amazing stuff with blackberry flavors. Stillhead Sneaky Pete, Burwood the Bee Whisperer, great stuff, and Burwood the Scientist. From Liberty Distillery in Vancouver, we have Trust Ancient Grains, Trust Single Cask Burgundy, Trust Single Cask Madeira, Wayne Gretzky number 99, Red Cask Whiskey. That is all of the bronze medal winners. So we're now going to move to the silver medals. Silver medals, we have Wayne Gretzky number 99 proof, 99 proof whiskey. Wayne Gretzky number 99 maple cask whiskey. I love what folks are doing with putting whiskey into casks that used to hold maple syrup, and it just makes wonderful, wonderful whiskey. Wayne Gretzky number 99 ice cask whiskey. Silver medals for 2 brewers, release 28. 2 brewers, release 25. And 2 brewers, release 24. Silver medal for Last Straw, Straight Ontario Cask Strength Corn. For Shelter Point, single cask number 7, Peat. And Shelter Point Ripple Rock, batch 1. Shelter Point Double Barrel, number 6. And Shelter Point 10-year-old Cask Strength. That's a great whiskey, guys, Shelter Point. We have a silver medal for Royal Canadian Small Batch. That's a wonderful whiskey. It's available in the US. I'm not sure it's in Canada yet. For Rich and Rare Reserve, a silver medal. Pike Creek, 10-year-old rum barrel finish. Pendleton Original. Okanagan Spirits Laird of Fintry Single Malt, and Okanagan Spirits Blue Label Laird of Fintry. Odd Society Peated Whiskey wins a silver, as does Last Mountain Distillery Single Cask 2020 Distillers Select. And Last Mountain Distillery Single Cask 100% Wheat Whiskey. Silver medal for Kinsip Maple Whiskey, J.P. Weiser's Alumni Series Martin Brodeur, and J.P. Weiser's 10-year-old. This is an EU special, J.P. Weiser's 10-year-old. Howitzer Canadian Whiskey. I really enjoy Howitzer. It's like a traditional Canadian whiskey. And, with silver medal. Highwood 20-year-old. This was, I think, the whiskey of the year for Whiskey Advocate a couple of years back. It's an amazing whiskey anyway. So this is what I'm telling you. It's really stiff competition this year. Paradigm Spirits, their Heritage Collection. Again, that's Matt Jones' place. We all love Matt Jones. Silver medals for 40 Creek Tap Room, 40 Creek Foxheart, 40 Creek Double Barrel Reserve, and 40 Creek Confederation of the Oak. That was our whiskey of the decade in the 10th anniversary. From Douglas, no mask required. From Divine, Glen Saanich Cask Strength Single Cask, and Divine Ancient Grains Cask Strength Single Cask, and Ancient Grains. I should say that Ancient Grains, it never fails to amaze me, Ancient Grains whiskey. We have silver medals for Crown Royal Reserve. For Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye, Crown Royal Fine Deluxe, and Crown Royal Black. Lot 40 Dark Oak, Lot 40 Gooderham and Worts, Caribou Crossing Single Barrel Canadian Whiskey, and Canadian Club Classic 12-year-old. Those are silver medalists. Silver medals going out to Nova Scotia for Raging Crow. Can't call it B*****. Black Velvet Original. It's another silver medal winner. And Bareface Whiskey Wilderness Series Matusaki release is again a silver medal winner. And Bareface Whiskey Elementally Aged Triple Oak 7-year-old. People who've tasted that will agree with me that the competition is fierce this year. But we do have gold medals that we're giving out to Shelter Point Single Cask 6 Rye, Crown Royal Noble Collection Rye, aged 16 years. It's a 16-year-old rye, and it's wonderful. Two Brewers, Release 26, wins a gold medal, as does 40 Creek Master's Cut. And I'm telling you now, if you haven't tasted Master's Cut, do yourself a favor and buy a bottle. It's a very special whiskey. I'll tell you why in a little while. Shelter Point 10-year-old. Crown Royal Extra Rare 18-year-old. Alberta Premium Cask Strength Rye. Canadian Club 100% Rye. Lot number 40, 18-year-old Cask Strength. North of 7, Canadian Whiskey. Canadian Club Chronicles 44-year-old. Its 43-year-old sibling was our Canadian Whiskey of the Year last year. Let's see what happens this year. From Crown Royal Noble Collection, Winter Wheat. Pendleton, Director's Reserve 20-year-old. Okanagan Spirits, BRBN, gold medal. Two brewers, release 27. Collingwood Double Barrel. J.P. Weiser's Smaller Hero. Another whiskey I'd like to talk a little bit more about when we get through this. Okanagan Spirits Laird of Fintry Black Label. Glen Saanich Cask Strength Wine Cask Finish from Divine. Pike Creek 22-year-old Pedro Jimenez Cask Finish. Okanagan Spirits Black BRBN Chocolate Malt Cask Strength. And there we have the gold medal winners. So now we get to the interesting part, which is the awards. The Award of Excellence for line extension goes for a fabulous 15-year-old whiskey from J.P. Weiser's. J.P. Weiser's Red Letter. This is a wonderful whiskey. It's been in every iteration, it has been great. Award of Excellence for Innovation, 40 Creek Master's Cut. Here's why you have to buy a bottle of that. This is the first time I'm aware of in Canada that they have taken whiskey, fully matured whiskey, going back to 1996, and blended it together, then redistilled it, and then put it back to age for another 50 years, for another 5 years. This is what you can't imagine how mature this whiskey tastes and how beautifully synthesized the flavors are. So, Award of Excellence for Innovation, 40 Creek Master's Cut. This next whiskey, Award of Excellence Canadian Whiskey Profile, goes to J.P. Weiser's Smaller Hero. This is a whiskey that is available in 4 whiskey stores around the world, none of them in Canada. La Maison du Whisky in 3 locations in France and in Singapore. People in France, people in Singapore can taste this very limited release. What's it called? J.P. Weiser's Smaller Hero. It's named after the Mordecai Richler novel. It's from the Ex Libris collection at La Maison du Whisky. We have a Lifetime Achievement Award tonight that we're going to present. I don't think she's aware of it, but Joanne Zanin-Scandella spent her career making Crown Royal. I remember when she was on campus the same time I was at McGill, and she was a student, I wasn't, and she has been selling like 100 million bottles of whiskey every year for ages. It's just amazing. Joanna is just about the most self-effacing, humble person you'd ever want to meet. The best whiskey spirit, and there was no toss-up this year as there was last. This year it goes to Raging Crow Distillery. The best corn whiskey, Bareface whiskey, elementally aged triple oak 7-year-old. Last Mountain Single Cask 100% wheat whiskey is the best wheat whiskey. And the best all rye whiskey, man, this was a horse race. There were 3 whiskeys that were going after this. And it was like an election, seeing the results coming in. And in the end, Shelter Point Single Cask 6 Rye is the best all rye whiskey of 2022, for 2022. And the best single malt whiskey also goes to Shelter Point for their Smoked Point 3. Best single grain whiskey, you guys at Shelter Point are cleaning up because your Single Cask 6 Rye is also the best single grain whiskey. Mixed mash whiskey, the best mixed mashed whiskey, Okanagan Spirits, BRBN. It's the first time Okanagan Spirits has entered the competition. Their whiskeys are sensational, just no kidding. They really are. I remember going out there a decade or more ago and meeting with Frank Dieter, who's not with the distillery any longer. And what they were doing there then was quite amazing. The best single barrel whiskey, Shelter Point Single Cask 6 Rye. The best cask strength whiskey, Shelter Point Smoke Point 3. I think Heather's going to come up and visit you, Jacob, and bring your medals. You may want to bring somebody to help you carry them back. The best barrel finished whiskey, Odd Society Maple Whiskey. I say, like, they take a maple syrup barrel, and it's not the maple syrup in it, but it did put their single malt whiskey in it. The whiskey is wonderful. That is seriously the best new whiskey of the year, Canadian whiskey. It's wonderful. The flavored whiskey of the year in the domestic market is 40 Creek Spike. The flavored whiskey of the year in export is Rich and Rare Peach. Rich and Rare Peach. The flavored whiskey of the year multi-markets, that's Sortilege, Wild Blueberries. It's really something you've got to taste. And the cream whiskey of the year goes to 40 Creek Nanaimo Bar. The whiskey value of the year, Okanagan Spirits, BRBN. That's for the domestic Canadian market. The whiskey value of the year in export is Black Velvet Original. And the whiskey value of the year multi-market, that's Canadian Club, 100% rye. Canadian Club, 100% rye. Dolph, next time I'm going to get you to teach me how to tape this so I don't have to have all these breaks while I drink. The sipping whiskey of the year, domestic market, Shelter Point Smoke Point 3. Sipping whiskey of the year in export is Royal Canadian Small Batch. And the sipping whiskey of the year in multiple markets, Crown Royal Noble Collection Winter Wheat. Connoisseur whiskey of the year, J.P. Weiser's Red Letter 15-year-old. That's domestic market. Connoisseur whiskey of the year in export, J.P. Weiser's Smaller Hero. The connoisseur whiskey of the year in multiple markets, that's Pendleton. Congratulations, Pendleton Director's Reserve 20-year-old. The artisanal distiller of the year, Okanagan Spirits. And the Canadian whiskey of the year, the best whiskey of the year, it was not close this year. They won by a mile. Canadian whiskey of the year is Crown Royal Noble Collection Winter Wheat. The best blended whiskey of the year, Crown Royal Noble Collection Winter Wheat. The blender of the year, Diageo Blending Lab in Montreal. The distillery of the year this year, Diageo Global Supply in Gimli. It's just truly wonderful to taste such amazing whiskeys. Crown Royal takes a long view. They're not chasing the trends. They've spent probably 10 years working on this whiskey to get it to where it is, and they well deserve it. And it's a sensational whiskey. Crown Royal, of course, is Canada's best-selling whiskey, and now we know why. In any case, thank you very much for joining us. You can watch the results that will be published. I'm hoping this year we'll have 1,000 news outlets publishing our results tomorrow. And best of luck for everyone next year. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care. I'm going to go offline now. Dolph, I'm frozen. I can't get out.